This is the Community Builder Podcast, Episode 7. I'm your host, Travis King. Coming up on this episode, I sit down with Priya Parker. Priya is the founder of Thrive Labs, at which she helps activists, elected officials, corporate executives, educators, and philanthropists create transformative gatherings. Trained in the field of conflict resolution, Parker has worked on race relations on American college campuses and on peace processes in the Arab world, Southern Africa, and India. She studied organizational design at MIT, public policy at the Harvard Kennedy School, and political and social thought at the University of Virginia. She lives in Brooklyn, New York, and is the author of The Art of Gathering, How We Meet and Why It Matters. She can be found online at www.priyaparker.com and at Priya Parker on Twitter and Instagram. Let's get into the show. Welcome to the show, Priya.
Thank you for having me.
Super excited to have you on. And I just wanted to say your book was amazing and I've learned so much and I can't stop talking about it.
Oh, thank you.
Of course, you're welcome. So yeah, I guess if you wouldn't mind, letting everyone know kind of who Priya Parker is and kind of where your community journey started, if that's okay.
I was born in Bulawayo, Zimbabwe. I have an anthropologist mother and a hydrologist father, and spent the first 6 years of my life. They would move every 6 months or a year from different fishing villages, first in Botswana, the Maldives, Indonesia, India, and then eventually to The Hague, and then eventually to the US. And I grew up with parents who deeply believed in community, ironically, but they believed in it theoretically. My mother is an anthropologist, and her life's work is participatory development. So asking the question, when aid comes into a community, how do you actually use it in a way that the community decides, while also still leveraging the expertise of others? And so, ironically, I grew up in a way until the age of 9 where we were moving around all the time. But we were, and by we, I mean they, were building tools to help people all over the world own their own kind of context, power, reality, while basically strangers are coming in with a lot of money. And so that was the context of my dinner conversations growing up. And then my parents divorced. They both remarried. By the age of 12, I was going back and forth. I'm an only child. I was going back and forth between both households. They both kind of remarried people closer to their ilk. So my mother's house was kind of Indian, British, atheist, Buddhist, kind of vegetarian, new agey, incense-filled, liberal, progressive. And my father's house was white, evangelical Christian, conservative, Republican, meat-eating, church-going family. And I belonged to both. And so my entire life in some ways is a exercise in trying to figure out who and where do I want to belong, and what do I want to belong to, and what do I want to create that doesn't yet exist.
Interesting. Wow, that actually drives me right into our first question about talking to chapter 4 of your book about creating a temporary alternative world. Being someone that has been in so many different worlds, traveling from country to country, even going back and forth between your parents' house, how did you adjust? Like, did you just learn to become a chameleon? Or did you change or find yourself not knowing who you were? I guess, could you talk a little bit about that?
My husband often jokes that when I am with my father's family and somebody sneezes, I say, God bless you. And when I am with my mother's house and somebody sneezes, I say, bless you. I take the God out. And I never even knew I did this. And so I think there's part, and if your listeners, I think many people who are attracted to community building are often attracted to it either because they come from multiple worlds or because they didn't belong to somewhere. We tend to seek out the things that we need ourselves. And I was like that. I at some level, I was a chameleon, sometimes consciously, sometimes not consciously. And growing up, I was curious and interested in how do you create temporary alternative worlds, temporary worlds where people can connect with part of their identity, but not have that one part of their identity substitute in for the whole, for the entire, that we are each and all complicated people full of paradoxes. and that it's okay to be that. And I think that the most interesting gatherings and the most interesting communities are the ones that allow for both a strong I and also a strong we.
Interesting. I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into the communities that allow for a strong I and a strong we. Like, would you mind giving some examples of those types of